Tonight is Monday, August 26, 2013. This is the meeting of the Canby Planning Commission. I'll call it to order. Our first item of business will be citizen input on non-agenda items. We'll allow open comment for the public to bring up topics of concern. Is there anybody here that's here for citizen input? No one's here for citizen input tonight, so therefore we'll move to agenda item number 3. Public hearing on a request from Melvin Borg for a minor land partition of a 12.52 acre site located at 23397 South Malino Road to create 3 parcels. Parcel 1 will have the existing buildings and access driveway, and parcels 2 and 3 will continue their agricultural use until light industrial development becomes feasible. For our public hearing format, the way it will be conducted is first we'll have the staff report. Secondly, we'll have questions from the Planning Commission of staff. Then we will have open public hearing for testimony. The applicant will have up to 15 minutes. The proponents then will be able to speak in favor of the application of not more than 5 minutes per person. The opponents will have not more than 5 minutes per person. Anybody that's neutral about it that wants to make other comments will have an opportunity to speak at not more than 5 minutes per person. And then there will be a rebuttal time for the applicant, not more than 10 minutes. And we'll close the public hearing. Then we'll have discussion amongst the Planning Commission that may include questions for the applicant or staff or each other. We'll have discussion at that time, at or after that time, and then a decision. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please step forward when the chair calls for the proponents if you're in favor of the application, or opponents if you're opposed to the application. Step to the microphone, state your name and address and your interest in the matter. You'll also need to sign the testimony sheet at the microphone with your name and address for mailing purposes. You may be limited by time for your statement depending on how many people wish to testify. Everyone that's present is encouraged to testify, even if it's only to concur with previous testimony. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria listed in the, not on the wall anymore, but listed in the code. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and interested parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal to the City Council and the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask the hearings body for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. The Planning Commission shall grant such requests by continuing the public hearing or leaving the record open for additional written evidence or testimony. As any such continuance of extension shall be subject to limitations of the 120-day rule unless the continuance or extension is requested or agreed to by the applicant. If additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the Planning Commission may, if requested, allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties reasonable opportunity to respond. Any such continuance or extension of the record requested by the applicant shall result in the corresponding extension of the 120-day time period. Last, we will have I will ask the rest of the members of the Planning Commission if they have any conflict of interest or any ex parte contacts about this matter. If you have any such thing, please state it in the microphone now.
I have visited the site, but that's all.
I have none.
Okay, one site visit and no other ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest are presented. Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions of anyone on the commission or any concerns about conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts? Not seeing any, we'll move forward. Angie, will you be presenting the staff report today?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ready?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Tonight we have a minor land partition application. As stated before, it's at 2337 South Malino. It's in the M1 light industrial district, and it's also in the industrial overlay zone. It's a 12.52 acre site highlighted in yellow on the screen, and its applicant proposes to partition the lot into 3 total parcels: parcel 1, 2, 3. Parcel 1 will have the existing buildings and access driveway. The applicant proposes to have the existing buildings and access driveway. Parcel 2 and 3 will continue agricultural use until industrial development becomes feasible. No public, the big thing is no public improvements are being required or proposed to be required for this partition. Utilities are available along Walnut through partial financing from a local improvement district by the owner. Parcels 2 and 3 have a 16-foot sidewalk and utility easement along the western edge, along Walnut, and any other necessary public improvements, including sidewalks and curbs, will be required at the time of development of the lots. Otherwise, this proposal meets all code criteria. And similarly, any traffic impact studies would be required at the time of development. So the code just has language to either put off public improvement requirements until later time or require them at the time of partition. So staff recommends that all necessary improvements be put off until time of site development. The city, so I'll go over some of the agency comments real quickly here, and then the conditions of approval, proposed conditions of approval. The city engineer gave several comments related to public improvement requirements that would be made at the time property is developed. And then, you know, as each property is developed, it would be required to have site and design review and be reviewed by utility agencies at that time, and also the city engineer again at that time. So that's what staff recommends. Canby Utility replied that the applicant may want to, in order, it's our understanding that PG, the applicant might be able to clarify this, but PG might service the property from the eastern side. If they want service from Canby Utility, they might need an easement from Walnut to Parcel 1. And that's something that the applicant needs to be aware of, and hopefully already is and is seen in the staff the packet. And if they want to do so, they are welcome to coordinate that with Canby Utility and place on the final plat if necessary. Northwest Natural replied, and they're not opposed as long as the existing access easement along the western portion of 2 and 3 remains. So that will also need to be reflected in the final plat. We do have a condition of approval listed to comply with all utility agency requirements, and before the planning director signs off on the final plat, we'll route it and check with all utility agencies and make sure that everything's on there that they want. The county has commented and did submit a letter. Originally, they were wanting to require close the existing access off Malino, and then the county did submit a revised letter, which I believe Lainey passed out to you guys, and we did email that saying a access easement from Walnut, somewhere from Walnut to Parcel 1 would be sufficient and satisfied their eventual. Malino is a county road, so they do have jurisdiction over that, and eventually their aim is to have this closed, especially if it's this parcel develops into an industrial use. So that is the aim of having the access easements. So we do have, and also our standard condition of approval listed, and they're going to, have to get the plat recorded, they have to satisfy what the county, any county requirements. So hopefully the applicant might give you some more insight into their discussions with them, but I think that issue is ironed out now. And the county also commented that the applicant needs to meet their site distance standards if that are not already met for this driveway. Before the plat is recorded, that might involve trimming some bushes or fence lines or whatnot. So they also commented that. So if you want to go to page 30 to 31 of your packet, that's under the findings tab, and kind of go over the conditions of approval. Any questions so far? Okay.
So Angie, just real quick, they're not asking them to change the road at Malino until it's developed, correct?
Yes. Originally, they did want the driveway
Right.
closed, but it sounds like they've.
They just gotta address the site and design issues, site clearance issues.
Yes, and they're going to, in their letter, they indicated that they're going to require a access easement from Walnut to Parcel 1 to be recorded on the final plat.
I do have one question, Angie. This is
Yes.
not about the substantive. Mine, I have the conditions of approval page right here, but it's page 14 on mine. I see
Uh-oh.
other people's is page 30. I'm sure. Just want to make sure I got everything in my packet.
Can I share? Oh, you might be looking at the staff report version.
You go to the findings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so mark back
They've
here.
already provided us the findings.
Oh, okay.
I'll share too.
Okay. Oh, is this mine here?
Okay, right there.
For the
No,
day?
that's the code.
Oh, okay. This one. 30 pages there. Oh, there is. Okay, great. Do have it.
Okay. Okay, so condition 1 is a standard modification condition, and anything that's modified after this approval would have to get a modification. Condition 2 relates to the public improvement requirements at time of development, and that they must be reviewed by utility agencies and city engineer. Condition 3, I am proposing to amend the wording to reflect the county requirements better. That the time the packet went out, we were thinking that driveway might have been closed and they were going to construct a new may construct a new driveway off Walnut, but now I did pass out a sheet on the dais for you, and we're just stating that they need to verify with the city anywhere they propose a new access easement to be an eventual driveway, to make sure it meets the city driveway width and spacing standards of the code. We're going to have the city, we have some survey accuracy standards in the code that the city engineer needs to verify that those are met. It talks about monumentation and survey accuracy, so didn't see that on the preliminary plat, but the final plat, we'll have the city engineer check it. 5, standard compliance with applicable outside agency standard condition, and it does note that it does include Clackamas County in there. So 6 is the standard condition stating compliance with the public works design standards, which involves the driveway, really. So that's the only thing that would really be applicable for the public works design standards. 7, they need to record the final plat within, get it approved by the city, and city will check with utility service providers and then sign off. And condition 8 is to have it recorded at Clackamas County within 1 year of this approval. And so with that, staff recommends approval of MLP 1301 pursuant to the conditions presented.
And are you aware of any, I guess, concerns or that the applicant might have about any of the conditions as proposed?
We did share it with them, and they did have previous concerns about the county issue, but I think they're aware of all the conditions and no alarming concerns that I know of.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Angie. That's great. Okay, let's next turn to the applicant. Would someone like to speak for the applicant? Mr. Borg or someone else?
I am the applicant. My name is Melvin Borg, 23397 South Malino Road. I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for hearing this request. I'd also like to thank the supporting personnel and staff, and also the employees of the City of Canby who have, I feel, given us fair treatment and rational treatment. So thanks to them. My interest is as an owner, along with Irene Dewar and Ruth Good, who are in agreement with the proposal. The purpose of the application is an attempt to get our heads back above water. The assessment by the City of Canby for the Walnut Street improvements is responsible for an unsustainable debt load. And we need to sell something, and hopefully more reasonably proportioned parcels will sell, unlike the gerrymander of the present configuration. We have found that the requirements or the requests by the city are reasonable, as long as the utility easement does not require utilities to be put in immediately before industrial development, because this land is farmed, and it's farmed intensively, and that involves subsoiling and working the soil in ways that would be imperiled by utilities underground. The technical side of this application has been dealt with by Z-Tech Engineering, and representing Z-Tech tonight is Chris Fishborn, and he can make the comments he needs to and answer any technical questions that may arise. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Borg. Is that going to close your comments?
That'll close my comments.
Okay. Mr. Fishburne, are you going to make comments or just answer questions?
I can answer questions, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant or his expert?
Chair, if I could you ask about the future access from parcel 1 to Walnut Street? Because I haven't heard what they're proposing on that.
Okay. Mr. Borg, can you tell us about your future plans for the access for parcel 1 to Walnut Street? And then secondly, if you can remember these, what are your current plans for the easement issue? Just that for our knowledge.
According to the county, it needs to be a 30-foot easement for the driveway. I think they said it needed to be able to handle an industrial access. And I I believe the most.
There's a
efficient
pointer
for-
right there. Excuse me.
Got a little,
I got a little
You can
pointer
use a
there.
laser if you want
I'm
there.
gonna try to use that.
Oh, okay.
It's the red button that should, there you go. Red should give you red.
Oh, okay, there. I think the most reasonable for us would be along this property line. And that would also include, the driveway access as well as the
Utilities.
utility easement.
Is that in the plans right now where you're going to do that, or is that something that's still flexible for later?
It is flexible for later if that makes it better for anybody else. But that's
Okay.
what I would suggest.
May I ask, sir, are you living there, or is that leased property, or?
I live in the house.
Right. And then you plan on living there until this other property is sold? Is that the plan, or?
I have no plans to move.
Okay, that's what I kind of figured.
There, it may be necessary to move to clear us of the debt, but if that's what it takes, if we need to sell it, we'll sell it.
Okay. Anybody else, any questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
So, oh, I'm sorry, real quick.
Go ahead.
So, with regard, I'm just trying to understand what the county's asking for here, or actually what the city's asking for too, is, so the plan that easement, with that easement right there, that would also be the access for parcel 2? Or would that allow for a secondary access down here where the distance allows for that secondary access? I guess is the purpose for this entrance right here is that this property is developed, that's gonna be the primary entrance for
To it.
trucking into that area,
Right.
correct?
And your other question is, would that also serve for parcels 2? And we don't know the answer for that until a development's proposed for parcel 2. We won't know whether they need to share a driveway.
Okay.
But by the way we have the conditions worded, it's possible that that driveway for parcel 1 may have to be the same driveway for developing parcel 2 because there's, I think, a 200-foot spacing between driveways. And we didn't try to analyze where those driveways would be since they're not proposing development. So we're saying they have to meet city standards. They may have to combine the driveways for
Okay.
development of that lot.
Walnut's a city street, correct? And
Yes.
Milano Road is a county.
Right.
So, sir,
And-
it's possible that if you sold these other 2 lots, then they would have access from Walnut Street, and then later on, if that other parcel was sold, it would have access from Milano, right?
Well, that's the issue here is the county is only allowing the existing residential driveway to stay if it remains residential farm use. The minute it converts to industrial use, they're saying that driveway has to be closed, ripped out, and the drainage ditch put back in, and the pavement taken out for 20 foot away so nobody will try to use it. And they've got to take any industrial access to Walnut Street. It's not that unusual of a requirement. When you have a property that fronts on 2 streets, their ordinance says, and we have the similar ordinance in the city, that if you have access to do 2 different classifications of streets, you must bend in favor of the lower classification to preserve the through traffic purpose of the higher classification street.
Strikes me as obvious if there ever is development on 2 or 3, they're going to use Walnut anyways. So the
Right.
county's concerns seem to be a bit, probably
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Cautious, yeah.
We're really gonna drive all the way across the
Right.
residential portion to get to Milano Road. Okay, any other questions? Okay, are there any other proponents? I don't think the 2 gentlemen there, I've seen them a few times, I don't think they're here to speak for this one. Okay. Is there any opponents? I don't think there's any opponents either. And that would mean that there's also no one that's neutral, unless my son wants to speak. So I think we are going to get to close. the public testimony, unless there's any other final comments you would have normally under rebuttal. Okay, we'll close the public testimony and move to questions. Any questions for staff or discussion? Let's just go to questions and discussion at the same time.
I have none.
I think it's pretty cut and dried.
Okay. Okay, not seeing any other discussion, that would, planning commission would entertain a motion on this. Brian, did you have a comment or
Yeah.
something?
I thought it'd take just a second to maybe explain the difference between an industrial minor partition and say if this was a residentially zoned property. The idea that we're delaying public improvements till later makes a lot more sense in an industrial zone than it would in a residential. Primarily with the idea that you want to be able to guarantee that they're going to put the public improvements in. Well, we have site and design review requirements for commercial industrial properties. We don't for residential. So we'd be asking a residential property to put the improvements in. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that distinction.
Okay. Obviously for industrial, you know, depending on the type of use, you may need different types of improvements as well, whether
Right.
how many driveways in or out or how wide.
Right.
Cart before the horse to be
Yeah.
asking that.
Well, and like he's saying, with the different properties, you don't know what's coming in there. They could actually wind up running that driveway down the middle line and collecting everybody off of that, if that's the way that it's gonna function, right? So there's no reason for us to.
But you do have to realize that to make the lots available for sale, which is their purpose, they have to file of record a final plat. And that final plat has to be filed before they can sell the lots. And when they do that, they're going to place all those easements on that plat. And so they will have to decide those locations before development.
Are those adjustable, Brian?
They are.
Very-
There's process you can do that. It's not fun, but
Well, I'm
Both
just
parties would have to agree
Right.
to remove the easement.
Well, I'm just thinking about future development. If the
right.
easement doesn't bode well for whatever company wants to move in there, would they have the opportunity?
Well,
to
and think of this scenario. They believe that smaller lots may be more marketable, but somebody big may come and they may want both of the lots or all three, in which case, I guess they'll buy 3 lots.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minor partition file number MLP 13-01 pursuant to the conditions of approval presented in this staff report, section 5.
Mr. Savory has moved to approve the application as presented by staff. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Coker has seconded. All those, is there any discussion on that motion?
Question.
All those in favor of approving the application of Great Base Engineering? No, it's the wrong one. I'm reading the wrong title. Reapprove.
That one too.
Read the right title here. All those in favor of approving the minor partition, file number MLP 13-01, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? It was unanimous, all in favor. Thank you, Angie.
You're
Good luck,
welcome.
Mr. Borg. Now, my agenda disappeared there, it is. Next, we have any new business. Brian, Angie, any new business? Laney, any exciting new business? Okay. Next, we have to review the final findings, conclusion, and final order of the application of Great Base Engineering for text and map amendment and site design review.
We might just make a note for your edification that these findings were prepared by Fred Meyer's attorney, Steve Abel.
Okay. It's always a wise thing to have happen.
And they're a little bit different than some of the findings we do, just in the fact that since the applications were kind of consolidated again and they go on to the council, the planning commission wasn't really making the final decision, and so we don't have all the conditions listed on here. It just refers to the staff report that had them all. And the council will be deciding exactly what those final conditions are, so they're not listed on here.
Okay. And was the entire file, since I wasn't here, just to clarify, the entire file was accepted into the record on this decision?
Yes, and it's before you on the
That's
dais right there.
whole file, okay.
And one thing that we will be discussing at the council meeting is, that was presented, was Fred Meyer's, Group McKinsey's traffic report had some recommendations. One of them was the curb extensions. So we're just going to bring that up to council and see what they think about that at Locust as a traffic calming measure.
It's really not, what's the other street? Is it not? Yeah, I guess
Not
is
Locust, not.
Okay.
So,
Now, Mr. Coker Proctor is not here. Mr. Savory and Mr. Hensley, you three were the ones that were here. Does this, you're obviously the ones that, before we finalize and approve this, does this match up with the decision that was made that night to the best of your
Yes.
Yeah.
knowledge? Okay. Do you have any questions about it?
Without being here for the conversation, it'd be difficult for me to ask Colin questions.
Okay. Okay. So then let's entertain a motion to approve the final findings, conclusion, and final order as presented by the applicant's attorney. Mr. Hensley, Mr. Coker, Mr. Savory, one of you please make that motion. John and I weren't here.
Oh, come on, take a shot in the dark there.
I trust you completely, but I'll let you guys make the motion.
Yeah.
Just, this is a formality. I mean, it's already been voted on. It's just the format,
just like the
basically the
minutes.
format of what he's presented here as our findings is what we're,
I make a motion that we do the final conclusion or final order of TA 1201-ZC 12-02-DR 12-03 as submitted.
okay, is there a second?
A second.
Mr. Savory? Now, just quick discussion on this. The nice thing about this is attorneys get to have their fun, and obviously they've had, I'm sure had plenty of fun on this thing, but they've probably thought about all the things that, you know, they think they need to think about in here, so it hopefully saves, in theory, hopefully everybody some time. Even though Angie and Brian do a fabulous job, they can't read the minds of the attorneys.
we're glad we didn't have to prepare them.
Okay, all in favor of approval of these as our findings, conclusions, and final order, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I believe it was unanimous. You voted, right, Sean? Okay. Those are the findings. Next, we have the minutes, June 10th is the
Do we-
oldest ones we have left to approve.
Final findings for the board.
Oh, did you skip that? So you have final findings for board
Oh, we
as
have
well.
final findings for this one. Okay, for the
Yeah.
board.
Board, yeah.
Okay. We should have just included these in our vote. Next time, if we do that, remind me, in the next meeting, if we have, you guys have already pre-drafted final findings, and we're
Okay.
having the hearing that same meeting, we'll just
We could do
incorporate them
We could
as
do
our
it that way,
findings.
yeah. It's just
If you
any blanks there
pass
if you
that to
wanna
that and has-
put
if you
any
guys approve it,
additional
it has
thoughts,
signature
and
on
it's
it.
just the conditions of approval.
We didn't,
And then we did
we did.
amend that number 3 and the parchment paper
okay.
there.
We've got those set up so that we can change anything that needs to be changed, because the signature page that you sign is just on
Okay.
separate page, but
Okay. All those in favor of having this as our, is there any discussion about having this as our official findings for the board application that we just approved?
No.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, I will sign this. You guys don't mind if it's blue, do you?
Nope.
Okay. Next, to approval of minutes. Oldest ones I have is June 10th. June 10th was the site design and review on the library. Is there any discussion about these minutes?
Mr. Chair, I propose that we adopt the minutes as presented for June the 10th, 2003, as the findings.
Okay,
2013,
What did I say?
2003.
Oh, 2013, sorry.
those are overdue.
Long time coming.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Savory seconds. All those in favor of approving the minutes of June 10th, 2013, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are approved for June 10th. Next, we had work session, no, yes, work session next. No, let me see, get my dates right.
Yeah, June the
we
24th.
called that a summary rather than minutes.
Okay. Anyone like to make any, we'll consider the planning commission work session summary. Does anyone have any proposed amendments or any questions about the summary for the June 24th work session?
Do we have to approve these, or?
Let's just do it. I'm not sure if we have to or not, but let's do it.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the work session summary for June 24th, 2013.
Is there a second, Mr. Hensley?
Second that.
All those in favor of approving the planning commission work session summary, June 24th, 2013, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Brian, is there any update on that as to whether or not we're looking at months, weeks, before we have some sort of idea where we're moving with that?
Yeah, I wish I could tell. Priority-wise, I actually think the annexation's probably more important, but I've actually have the food carts, the number one thing we're gonna come back with first. And so that's the order we're attempting to get to. And I'll talk about that a little bit later here this
Okay.
evening.
Next, the minutes from the July 8th planning commission meeting, which I was not at. I apologize for not being here. That's just the way it worked out in the summer, I guess.
Yeah, it happens.
This was Fred Meyer.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for the July 8, 2013 Planning Commission meeting as submitted.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor of approving the July 8th, 2013 Planning Commission minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? There's none opposed. On to the minutes of the July 22nd, 2013 Planning Commission meeting. This one had significant testimony and a lot more detail to it. Is there any input on this or motion?
Mr. Chair, I suggest that we meet the Planning Commission minutes for July the 22nd, 2013, as approved, as read here.
Okay.
Second that.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of approving the Planning Commission meeting minutes from July 22nd, 2013, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None were opposed. Items of interest and other staff reports.
I had just a couple things. The food cart thing is something that's been on my mind, so I wanted to let you guys know. Certainly haven't forgot about it. Everybody's been on vacation during the summer. It's been kind of hectic at the office. We're actually quite active and busy, and so I'm actually having difficulty finding any time to think about these things. So I just wanted to make that and put it on the record for you that we haven't forgotten, and we'd like to get these things done, but we're working on quite a few things. A couple of things that have come forward, just so you know they're in the works. We have a pre-application for a 15-unit townhome development that's in the triangle near the fairgrounds on the new street improvements for 3rd and 4th. So it goes from 3rd all the way over to 4th on 2 parcels. And it'll be a fairly high density. That's R2 zoning in that area. But it's a very unique development. It'll be the first PUD we've done here in Canby since 1996.
Wow.
And so we had to learn the code to figure out what in the heck a PUD is. But I think it'll be real interesting when that comes before you and you get to see how they put townhomes in existing area like that. We've also had, it's interesting, 2 annexation inquiries in the past week. One of them is located, doesn't mean they'll immediately follow up with applications. In fact, deadline for annexation applicant is the last day of August if they want to go on to the May ballot. And so I don't think anyone's going to make that. So I would anticipate that our first new annexation is going to be for the November ballot, just for your information, even though we've had some interest. But one of the annexations is a parcel that's next to a 5-acre tract that was annexed in 2009. It was called the Beck annexation. It was on North Pine Street. And so there's another 5-acre tract just south of that one. And they are working right now for a subdivision on the property. Came in, visited, and they plan to make a pre-application meeting and submit that very soon. Actually, that's for developing the property that's already annexed, not the one that hasn't been yet, but the other property. So we're looking at a new subdivision there as well, and it looks like they can get 16 to 17 single-family detached lots on that 5 acres. And then we also sent a lot of information out, and it looks like we're going to have a cell tower proposed in town. And the location is on North Baker Street in the industrial park. It's just across from Johnson Controls, be on the river side of the road. That's particular applications. Our cell phone ordinance indicates that's a preferred location because it's industrial zone, but it's within 660 feet of a residential zone, therefore it's going to need a conditional use permit. And as you know, we can place conditions of approval on conditional use permits. So we'll see if they move forward and submit that application, but we've sent a lot of information to them, so I'm anticipating they will. That's all I had.
Can you give us any kind of an update on the road connector project between Township and 13th?
Trying to think what I've heard on the end. We're still in the competition, so to speak, of the 150% list that had to be cut down to the 100% funding. And so we haven't been eliminated yet. There's been a lot of work taking place the past couple of months. Matilda Diaz is our project planner on that primarily, and There's actually been quite a bit of intensive review with the city engineer and with her between the county, and they're asking all sorts of additional information that has been needed to be collected and turned into them. It's primarily because there's federal funds involved, and if we were to get this project on the state transportation improvement plan, it's basically a grant, the funneling of the federal funds to be able to do that. So that's really about all I know. I don't really remember now when the drop dead date is, where we're going to find out.
I've asked,
Have you?
and it's up in the air.
Okay.
Question that I was asked was just more of a design thing about the bike lane there. Is there?
Are you
some sort
talking
of
about
dividing?
Sequoia, or are you talking about
You're-
the South Ivy extension?
The sidewalks on South Ivy,
Talking
and
about the one.
because that was the one I was assuming is
'Cause
the
we have a
The
sig-
one where they made the video and.
Oh,
Yeah, they're
yes.
going to do the signal light in
No,
township.
I'm talking about between township and.
The one that's
That's
under construction
Yeah,
now?
Yeah.
Oh,
one's
that
already-
one.
Oh,
That's
that's
Sequoia.
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 Extension of a Sequoia.
Yeah, there are some issues that are still being ironed out on that particular project, even though it's already, well under construction, in terms of, on 13th Avenue, the county is insisting, since it's a truck route, that it be built to a differing standard or something than was originally thought was going to be required, the intersection with Sequoia Parkway to 13th. And I have not heard how they've resolved all of that yet. There's been a whole slew of alternatives debated, and I have not been a party to those. The city manager has been, and the city engineer have been dealing with those demands from the county. Improvements that went beyond what the improvement plans that had been contracted out, and so that put a little bit of some complication to it. But I'm not sure how that's being resolved at this point. But I think the rest of the construction is on time and moving forward.
Anybody else? Any things? Okay. Well, then that would conclude the previously set agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, move that we adjourn this meeting.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.